think also what's important, what's missing in this conversation is the input from public health officials and any specifics from our governor as to what exactly and how exactly this bill will be implemented to prevent the spread. And I think it's also important to note, coming from our constituents, that for those that are traveling, some of this might have a mental health benefit. I see that at times it can exacerbate, restricting movement can exacerbate mental health issues that currently exist. And there's also a question as to whether exercising is an infraction. So I would like to, I know this is a difficult decision to make because I do want to ensure that whatever measures that come out of this or whatever we pass takes into consideration the needs of our society, in addition to preventing the spread of this virus. And so I don't want any unintended consequences from passing this. And I think too, the effectiveness of increasing fines. I mean, we know as a government that this has been the conundrum. How do we enforce measures? We can pass laws, but how do we actually enforce them? And I think this adds to that. This is one of the complications of this bill. But again, I think really the foremost concern for me is, will this measure be effective in saving lives? And that's something that I'm weighing at this moment in consideration of other impacts that it might have. And so when I initially saw this bill, I thought, it's a common sense measure because for every infraction, there should be some sort of consequences. But it's a much more complex issue because it does impact people's mental health. It can impact civil liberties. And so these are things that I'm weighing in my decision. I think what would be helpful though is that if we had a clear directive of how this would be implemented, I think this would be more helpful. And if it was linked to public health outcomes, I believe that it would make this measure much more effective. I think having said that, I feel that it's one of those difficult decisions, I feel, for me, because we know that if we delay any strict measures, we've seen that there can be increases in the spread. And it's a tough situation to be in, because do we delay the decision and see increases in our community or as a result, if in fact this measure would help prevent the spread? So this is something that I weigh heavily. And that's just basically what I wanted to provide. Thank you.
Senator Perez. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the main motion? Senator Torres and then Senator Lee. Okay, Senator Lee, you may go first.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker, and good afternoon, colleagues. Madam Speaker, for the record, the amendment that I proffered earlier this morning, which failed, was my good faith attempt to make changes desired by our community and by myself as a representative of that community, to make this bill a measure that I could support. Madam Speaker, I'm certainly in favor of the concept of putting teeth to emergency public health orders. And I certainly want to help the governor. I want to help our law enforcement officers. I want to help our military and our healthcare workers, our frontliners and first responders. But fear and blind faith should not, in my mind, result in blanket authority to our chief executive. And I want to
on.
be clear, I agree with our Mega Haga and her Physicians Advisory Council. Everyone should continue to stay home. We must build on the recent developments noted both here in this session and by the governor in her daily press briefings, where our recovery rate is above our infection rate, which is certainly something to celebrate or something to really help lift our spirits. It seems like the curve may be flattening, but I agree that we cannot let our guard down. We all need to continue social distancing. We need to continue self-isolation before all the measures in our local community are relaxed. That being said, Madam Speaker, it's really hard to stay home when you have no income and when you
Right.
have no cash flowing in to help you with just basic necessities for life. It's really hard to bunker down when you're worried about where your next meal will come from or how to put food on the table for the next day. And I won't veer too far off course with this measure, but there have been multiple attempts by multiple members of this body to lift our people up and to give us some economic relief, precisely to help the governor and help our community comply with these stay-at-home orders. But Madam Speaker, there's another critical human piece to the measure and the question that is before us today. I'm sure you've heard, and I certainly have heard from veterans in our community
Oh my God.
and those who have loved ones with PTSD and other mental health and behavioral health concerns. We have members of our island family who need opportunities to just get out for a little bit. And some of them have had doctor's orders which include driving around to lower their anxiety, to protect themselves, to protect their children and their partners that they live with, to give them an outlet. And I'm really concerned that the version of the legislation before us could unjustly punish the heroes who've sacrificed so much for our island and our country, and not really take into consideration some of the challenges that they're dealing with on a daily basis, Madam Speaker. And I want to take the time to really thank many of those in our community who have reached out to us on this issue. Even without a public hearing, we have received numerous calls, emails, text messages, and messages on social media from the public who really want to be heard on this issue. And Madam Speaker, I've tried in good faith to make changes to this legislation to make it a workable and reasonable solution. Madam Speaker, because of that outcome, I'd like to make a motion now to respectfully be removed as a co-sponsor of Substitute Bill
Yes. There she is.
334-35.
There's our 8.
There's our 8 people.
There has been a motion to remove Senator Lee as the co-sponsor of Bill number 334-35. Is there any objection? No objection? Motion passes.
I really feel like we are
Senator
making
Lee,
a
you still
difference.
have the floor.
Right on, Senator Lee.
Senator Torres, you are recognized.
Yeah, Taurus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to express my opposition to this bill. And I'd like
Right
to
on.
There's 9.
I'd like to mention, though, that we do, as I spoke previously before we recessed for lunch, there's always a value to having consequences for not obeying rules and laws. And I think, though, that in the climate that we're in, because the executive orders are quite broad, they address many different things. It's a little difficult to apply a scale of penalties for violation of those executive orders because they are so broad. And a lot of times they may have the effect of impacting people inadvertently, people who perhaps are not deserving of the fines that are being contemplated in this bill. But the reason that I oppose the bill is not because I don't believe in consequences for people who are unlawful. What I oppose it on is the idea that the executive orders are rather broad, and I believe if the interest and the intent of imposing fines is to deter people and prevent people from causing greater harm to others by engaging in actions that are in violation of the executive order, then we address it for what it is. So if a person, for example, is so defiant and puts themselves in a position and puts others in a position where they are clearly being harmed in this health emergency, then that person is deserving of punishment. And I believe, Madam Speaker, that it is not necessary, in my thoughts, I believe it is not necessary to add another layer of authority to the governor through Bill 334. I believe that Guam law already has sufficient areas in there that people who clearly are disorderly, are engaging in disorderly conduct that causes harm to others can be dealt with if you look at the criminal code under 9 GCA. And I think that in instances where punishment is warranted because of an act that is egregious and clearly and distinctly harmful, and perhaps repetitively harmful, then we can take appropriate measures. So on that, Madam Speaker, I believe that we are struggling with how much is too much when we believe that something must be done. And I also would just like to comment that the executive orders as they are, in those areas where defying a certain part of an executive order is clearly harmful, we have areas within our code, specifically with disorderly conduct, for example, that could warrant that. There's also sections in the code that define and give punishment and defenses to things like loitering, things that can be married into the executive order prohibitions. So I just want to express that I appreciate that we want to put teeth, as I mentioned earlier, to these measures to make sure that people not only see it as a deterrent, but that we can hold people accountable for actions that clearly harm others. But in the case of Bill 334, I believe it's an unnecessary added power to the executive branch with executive orders, being that they are so broad, and that if we really want to punish people who are harming others, that there are other areas in our laws that I believe can be applicable to those situations. But, you know, let's not have people worry that they're going to be in trouble for standing 4 feet from someone as opposed to 6 feet, or that they repetitively go through a roadway system that they're not allowed to because they are either, for whatever reason that they cite. But, you know, I think right now people just need to be given the respect to discipline themselves, to allow themselves to follow the laws, and to continue to do what we think is responsible for flattening the curve, which is being a little responsible. And for those that really aren't and that cause great harm or potential risk to others, let the law within the criminal statute deal with those, because I think that those powers exist right now. Jesus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Speaker
Next.
Barnes, you are recognized.
Si
Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
She's gonna pull it.
Hearing the presentation of my colleagues and knowing the direction on where we are as far as facilitating Bill 334-35, I, as the main author of the
She's gonna pull it.
legislation, want to reconsider the actions and move this back to committee. And I hope that my colleagues will help me in those efforts so that I can report it back to the proper committee and see
Oh, no,
how
she
else
wants to
we
go
can
with what
facilitate
Telo was
this.
asking?
So I guess the motion in place is to reconsider the actions of the body and send it back to the appropriate committee to
CYA,
facilitate this.
Timuna Barnes.
Yes, you are correct. There has been a motion to reconsider the actions of the body. Are there any objections to that motion? If none,
All
motion
right,
passes.
Dictator Act 1
There's,
has failed so far. Now we move on to Dictator Act 2. I don't
We're
know.
on the motion to refer to the Committee on Rules. Are there any objections? No objections? Motion passes.
We're now on to Dictator Act 2.
And
which
this
is
one
Bill
determines
335.
what?
This one will give the governor the power to institute a curfew unilaterally and to punish people who violate that curfew. And I got a note from Jesse Mendiola saying that he understands that this one is even more dictatorial than the first one. So let's see how this discussion happens. The sponsor of this bill is Amanda Shelton. Let's see, are they in recess? Recess number 36. Everyone got some time to take their Tylenol and recuperate from the
They
drinking
probably
that they
went-
did this morning.
The senators probably went into their office, checked their emails, and everybody is giving them crap.
Sorry, can you just continue maybe go to the comments?
Oh.
I need to do the Mary Torres breaking news and the breaking news.
Oh,
that the
no,
bill-
no, I want to let everybody know we got an email from, the email is actually from Mallory Cruz. And this is
Colleagues?
for,
We are now on bill number
Okay,
335-35. Legislative Secretary, I will now acknowledge you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon to you and my colleagues.
who co-sponsored
There
this?
has been a substitute version
I haven't-
uploaded to our Google Drive by the clerks. I hope everyone has had a chance to take a look at that new version. This new version addresses some of the concerns I heard from colleagues over the last couple of days regarding the broad powers that were being given to the governor through this bill. So I hope that answers some questions up front. Today, colleagues, I ask for your support of Bill 335.
Oh,
To
no.
move, I'm sorry,
To accept.
Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 335-35 into the second reading file for discussion,
To accept,
to accept it for discussion.
yes, to accept the substituted version. Madam
To
Secretary,
accept the substituted version of Bill 335.
on that motion? Minority Leader, do you have an objection? This is not a debatable.
No, it's not. I just can't see it. I don't have it on my computer, so it's very hard to follow along, when she's discussing it, if we don't have it in front of us.
Are people predicting a recess?
Madam Speaker, if I could just have 1 minute so we can find it first so everybody has it before we begin.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, Madam Speaker, the name of the file is S. Bill number 335-35 COR ALS.
This is Senator Amanda Shelton's Bill 335. There's a substitute bill. We haven't received it yet, so hopefully Troy can get it from his friends over at the legislature.
Sorry, I'm behind in all this breaking news stuff.
It is.
37? Oh, wow. It's a lot. Oh, this was Tello's recess. So, Candid Land, you have made a very big difference, and
Yes.
the opinions that you've had, the comments that have been seen by senators who've been watching, and by senator staffs who've been watching.
Also,
Have been noted.
Ray Gibson's
Yes.
show,
Bob Klitsky's show.
Ken Leon Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I really feel like we made progress here. Let's see what happens with this. Is there any chance that the governor wrote these bills for them to put through?
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big chance, actually. Eddie Cabo used to do that all the time and have Chris Duenas or Tony Ada introduce the bills for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they should be addressing bills like private sector pay, food
Mhm.
stamps for the people, all of that
Tax
good stuff.
refunds.
Tax refunds.
I know Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes is trying to put her tax refunds bill onto the agenda.
Yeah, but she's too busy doing other things on break, harassing our Kandit land brothers and
Senator
sisters.
Shelton, Legislative Secretary, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on Bill 335-35. The intention of the bill is simply to protect our community. And this would be done by allowing the governor, through an executive order, the authority to implement curfews and other mandates to stop the spread of COVID-19 in our community. Individual freedoms are sacred in our democratic society and must be treated with extreme care. They must be protected and also checked to ensure individual freedoms do not infringe on the freedoms of others. In this unprecedented emergency, individual freedom has the ability to infringe on the rights of others to remain healthy and have access to health care if infected. It is with tremendous respect and consideration that this bill will lead to critical temporary allowances to ensure that we do not see increases in infections and run out of capacity in our hospitals. The United States now leads in both the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths globally. This has happened at an unprecedented speed, and with the virus's exponential growth, we can no longer afford to act incrementally. Madam Speaker, we have the unique advantage of witnessing the actions and responses of other countries and states in the wake of the novel coronavirus. We can no longer be 2 steps behind the curve on this issue. This is our opportunity to lead on the issue and show our community that we truly care about the well-being of all our people. Nevertheless, the government of Guam has a compelling interest and the responsibility to keep individuals from causing harm to others. And that is what Bill 335 is attempting to do. We can simply look at places such as Taiwan and New Zealand, who are finding success in containment of the virus with measures that may have been viewed as extreme to some looking from the outside, but have certainly shown us hope through the dampening of the spread. We can look at places within the United States where our medical leaders are now seeing examples of success, such as San Francisco, for their swift and tight actions taken and not without heavy criticism. Madam Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me in support of these measures to protect our community. I want us all to be on the right side of history in a few weeks, and I would hate for us to look back and say that we could have and should have done more. We need to change our direction to counter the projected reality of thousands of deaths by the end of this pandemic. We have thanked the governor for her most recent preemptive actions. However, we must not stop at mandatory social distancing or the application of various roadblocks. The governor announced earlier this week that COVID-19 patients are recovering from the illness, and data shows the recovery rates are faster than the infection rates. There is a possibility that these results are due to the measures in place, but we must preserve the current decline in reported numbers and remain vigilant. We also must understand that some cases have yet to be reported, and because of this, we should expect and plan for the worst. Since its arrival to our island, the coronavirus has always seemed to be 2 steps ahead of us. Now, I firmly believe we are beginning to turn the tide and have a real opportunity to beat the virus and to save lives. Let's not lose the gains we've made, and let us continue to push forward. We cannot wait for the next session to act when time is not on our side and the lives of our people are jeopardized due to our inaction. Let us work together to implement these measures expeditiously. Strong measures enforced now have the real potential to blunt the impact of the coronavirus on Guam in the near future. No measure, I believe that no measure is too drastic when it comes to protecting the health and safety of Guam. And every single day counts. By delaying decisive action, there is a possibility that we too are contributing to an exponential rise in the number of cases. This is not about individual rights. This is about the right of our community to get through this together. We need to stop responding incrementally to an exponentially growing threat. Let us move from 2 steps behind to the forefront. We must do everything within our power to ensure we don't leave more people behind in this pandemic. Let's make sure that one day in the near future, on the other side of this, we can again hold hands with all our loved ones.
Don't touch
because
me.
I know that's what we all want to do. We all miss our families. We miss the normalcy here. On the other side of this, we can hold hands again and watch the sun rise together. So, Madam Speaker, I ask for your support and for my colleagues' support as well. So, Dios Masi. I look forward to any discussion on the bill that might help strengthen us and to curtail any powers that our colleagues have expressed that may be too much. So, I appreciate everyone's time and input to this discussion today.
Senator Amanda Shelton, she talked about too much and what's needed. She just never saw a donut she never met. I'm just reading this bill now. It's first because I've been so focused on Bill 334.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
It really is just as dictatorial as the
For
first one.
clarification purposes, I just want to make sure that the clerk has done it, and just to be safe, without having to go back to the tapes, is just to verify the motion to accept. So without any objection, motion carries. And then the motion, Madam Secretary, for the
What?
Speaker
place,
Speaker Barnes is all like, ha,
Thank you,
can
Madam
it's
add
your
Speaker.
turn,
This is
Amanda.
Bill 335 in the third reading file for discussion, as substituted.
as substituted. And I'll still give you that opportunity to proceed if you want to add, or, okay. With that being said, anyone else wishing to speak on the main motion?
Get it off.
Anyone else on the main motion?
Senator
Minority
Shelton
Leader,
tried to
you
go.
are recognized.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Is she the only author?
I have a
No.
couple questions I'd like to
Tina,
ask the
Tina,
author of the
Pito,
bill.
and Joe
Please, if she so shall yield.
Please state the question.
In the changes that were made, there's quite a bit of changes from the original bill. One of the concerns I have is, what's the difference between 15 days, allowing the governor to have the authority to implement a curfew for only 15 days? Why was 15 the magical number, or why was even a number put in there if the intent was to give the authority to the governor for curfew?
Legislative Secretary, would you like to yield?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I thank my colleague for the question. The 15 days was put in so that we wouldn't give the governor such broad-reaching authority to set a curfew for any amount of time that she wished. So this 15 days came up as a number. As we know, her executive order has been extended until May 5th, so that's just a few days from now. And also, we know that 14 days is the incubation period of the virus in a body, and we can see a lot done in just 2 weeks. So we didn't want to make it an over excessive amount of time, but something that made sense to fit in with the already existing executive order and what we know about the virus at this time.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for the answer on that. But the way I see it, we've already had how many extensions put into place by the governor? And if we entertain this legislation and incorporate 15 days, what happens again if there's another extension or concern moving forward? Do we have to come back to this legislature with another bill to allow her for another 15 days? Unless the intent was just to allow it 15 days at a time. But it doesn't sound like that. So I have another question too, Madam
Please
Speaker.
proceed.
When incorporating the word shelter in place, now that always boggled me, because in most states, they have shelter in place. But Guam decides to use the verbiage social isolation, which is a bit different from shelter in place. So I'd like to ask the good author of the bill why the word shelter in place when all executive orders that have come out so far, in fact, I can give you those executive orders and tell you exactly where social isolation was in an executive order that she precluded. If I'm not mistaken, it was in Executive Order 6 or 4. But so my question is, why shelter in place and not continue to use what the governor has incorporated in the executive order, which was social isolation?
Legislative Secretary, would you like to yield?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And just to be clear, in none of the executive orders does she use the language shelter in place. The language used is social isolation or social distancing. And so a shelter in place order or a shelter in place directive means that everyone stays home except for these essential needs that are provided for in the bill. And sheltering in place is the language that was deemed appropriate by our legal counsel to allow the governor to help the governor establish this quarantine period for everyone on the island to be in their homes for this amount of times, to shelter in place in their individual homes.
Minority Leader.
Actually, Madam Speaker, if you look at the definition
Get
for
her,
social
Tello.
isolation, the similarities here, I believe, reflect still the ability to allow those for essentials, individuals providing essential jobs to be allowed in both scenarios. So it still doesn't answer my question with regards to that, but I'm not going to delay any longer. I'll just continue on. So I won't delay any longer, Madam Speaker. I have several other questions, but it's obvious that, for me personally, I think everything is pointing in the direction, is the same way as Bill 334, with the same reasons why. And many of the testimonies that were presented to us never kept 334 without 335 as a no vote because of our, I'm sorry, okay. Oh, never mind, okay, I thought Senator was asking another question. So that being said, Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the House rules, I move to make a motion to remove Bill 335 from the session agenda and to send the measure to the appropriate oversight committee so that the public hearing may be conducted.
There is an objection. All those who wish to push this bill back to the appropriate committee, please signify by raising your hand. There was an objection, so I'm calling for the vote. Please signify by raising your hand. There was an objection to the minority leader's motion. So all those in favor of moving to push this bill back to the appropriate committee, please signify by raising your hand.
Real high.
5,
6,
Don't forget 10.
10 Regina.
Huh?
7.
One more. Raise your hand, Joe.
Tina's not, Tina's looking, that's right. There, Sabine.
Really? She did?
Yeah,
How come she put her hand back down?
maybe she was calling.
Oh.
Sorry.
Madam Speaker, may I request for a roll call, please?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
That's how they shame everyone into
Motion
voting.
fails, there's only 7 votes. Anyone else?
Madam Speaker, I still have the floor, please. And I ask to make a motion now that to reconsider the vote and go into a roll call vote for the last motion presented.
Where's the sugar?
Hmm?
Where's the sugar?
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Maybe on,
Please state your point of order. Yes, the motion failed, Vice
Thank you, Madam
Speaker.
Speaker.
And you are right. The minority leader still has the floor. Minority leader, you are still recognized on the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I ask for the body to reconsider the vote and I ask that they make a motion to reconsider the vote of sending the bill back to committee and to request for a roll call in the event that is objected to again.
Minority leader, what I will do for you is accept your motion to reconsider. There is a motion to reconsider on the floor. Is there an objection? There is an objection. All those in favor to, there is an objection?
Yeah.
All those?
There is a roll call, request for a roll call.
No,
Madam
there's not. I'm going to do the motion to reconsider. That it is appropriate and proper. There's a motion to reconsider. There has been an objection. All those who wish to reconsider the vote, please signify by raising your hand.
What's that? That's 1, 2, 3.
Motion fails. According to the clerk, the count was 6. Minority leader, you still have the floor.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just, at this point, I'm completed. Thank you so much.
Buen provecho. Anyone else on the main motion? Anyone else on the main
Can't believe
motion?
they're
Senator
considering
Therese
this.
Chalayi, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've also had we've had a little while to think about this bill. It's interesting to see the substitute version, and it's much more clearer, I think. However, there's still some underlying questions about the need for it that I feel like despite the time that we've had to think about, we have not really received the answers. It is true that in other places, they have instituted shelter in place or stay-at-home orders, and those have not been instituted here. And that in other places, they put penalties. In one executive order regarding that one action, they've put penalties. So it's very specific what the penalties will be for which orders. However, most of the places have claimed that their success has not been necessarily from threatening the people with prosecution or fines even, but it's that they've said they were successful because they were able to convince their residents of the need, of the urgency, of the importance, and of the connection to this action with either saving lives or, better health. I mean, and of course with this pandemic, we're talking about saving lives. And I don't know, it's hard because the governor in her letter to you, Madam Speaker, did not specifically request for a curfew. I read it several times to see where did this curfew idea come from, and it's not specifically mentioned in there. So she's just requesting for some enforcement powers and for more powers, but the request for a curfew or a shelter in place, I was not aware that she did not have that power, and I am been perplexed why she's trying to limit, roadway movement when she hasn't really limited us otherwise. But most important, I think, when these other cities or states have tried to convince their residents that this is very important, they also, on the other hand, have really been successful in showing their residents that they are doing everything in their power to make sure that this spread of the pandemic is going to stop, that we are going to do everything in our power to do that. And on top of asking the citizens, they've been very selective about what businesses they're going to allow to operate. They've been very aggressive in trying to obtain tests. Look at the CNMI. I think the people of the CNMI, they might be very, happy today that they have thousands of test kits, and that it gives them hope that they are going to see an end to the curfew that they are experiencing now. It gives them hope that they're going to see, movement, some kind of movement that they're going to be able to, that they're working on getting back to that. But everyone tells us that we're not going to get anywhere near normal, or even, nothing will look normal again. But we can't make this movement very productively. Even Dr. Fauci, who is the consultant for, President Trump, says, you're not going to do that without testing. Testing is vital.
Very vital.
I guess that's, so for me, I want to see a balance. I want to see that our government is aggressive in trying to get tests. We heard, very surprisingly, from the public health director about when they questioned her today about, what about these tests at the CNMI? She said they're going to look into it. It's very perplexing.
They should have already looked into that.
We have put our trust in the entire, in many people in the executive branch. Now we have other people involved, including the surgeons sell the, the National Guard and FEMA, but we put our trust in these people to do what we always knew we needed to do, seek additional tests, seek additional ventilators, seek, the PPEs. And I just think that's how you convince these people, we convince people, that these rules are necessary, because on every other angle, we are doing our best, and we have their interests in mind. And so I think, we can still do this. And I know that there have been a lot of efforts, but I just think we have to be consistent. We have to be very consistent. We can't have exceptions in our cabinet, as to who follows the rules and who doesn't. We can't have that.
Amen.
That's, just a recipe for disaster. And so we were doing very well, I think, in convincing the public as to the need, the urgency. The doctors came on board, and they were being very public. But now it seems like, we're having a lack of information. And I just think the more information, the better. I've always believed that, and especially in times like this, when trust is the most essential thing that you're going to use. The more information, the better. The fact that senators come and ask me, what is the plan for the medical facilities? What's happening with the test kits? I follow up regarding test kits every day with anybody that I can tell who's, has any role in procuring these things. And I guess at this point, I'm willing to say that there've been many promises, many promises of test kits. We're gonna get them from different countries at one point. The private clinics or hospitals were involved because they could procure things differently than, the government. That just all kinds of people were involved, Madam Speaker. And so I don't know, I have to say, we continue to hear during, the press conferences that we are still expecting these test kits, but it's just, I guess, it would be very nice to see them here. It would be very nice to see the quantity that we know we need. And I think that would give us confidence in our results at this point. We've only done, I think, if I calculated correctly, about 800 tests for the whole island. And I don't think, that's giving anybody any assurance that, wow, we can really say we're free and clear here. I don't think that's the case at all. Excuse me. I think, when things are rapidly changing, and we want to consider a curfew now, positive tracing and surveillance, that also has to be very, very transparent and free. I mean, free to the public. They need to know, as much as possible. The point of this tracing and surveillance was so that we could be informed and we could, change our behaviors because we are informed. And so we're happy now to know a little bit more detail about the cluster, but again, that's been, I just feel like the public should have known about these sooner. They should know as soon as we know anything. They should know everything. And that, hopefully that will influence behavior. Public health suggests that many of the COVID patients who did not contract the virus through international travel contacted it through household or medical contact. A curfew would not have saved them.
Yeah.
Amen.
The calculations as of the beginning of this week were approximately 82% of the patients have household and medical contact. 82%. Only 18% of the patients had community contact. And so now that's still a risk, and I don't want my family to be exposed to that risk. So I'm going to act appropriately, Madam Speaker, but I just think that a curfew is an extreme measure that should be matching, the risk. It looks to me like if healthcare workers are at greater risk, or, those within households, then we're not doing a good job of testing all those in households who have been tested positive, or something's, going on there. Like it's either our isolation or our quarantine, needs to be stricter, or our testing of everybody in a household where there was one positive patient needs to happen. And I know for a fact that that doesn't always happen.
Yep.
And there have been a time when we were very short on kits, when people were sent home and told, it looks like you have this, go home and isolate. And then it ended up that their family ends up testing positive. So, I know that our frontline workers are working very hard, and I want to protect them. And if a curfew would protect them, then, I say, let's do it. The problem is, I guess I'm at today's juncture, I just feel like there are more things we can do to protect those people, besides just preventing travel or preventing travel at a certain time. Again, travel is not the, driving, in other words, it's not the, if you're driving alone, it's not the contact that's dangerous to us. I would rather focus our government's efforts on healthcare workers having adequate supply of PPEs, personal protective equipment, and that home isolations and quarantines follow proper protocols. They have protective supplies within their households to prevent spread any further. That our contact tracing information warns us. It's used to warn us of clusters and for our family to get tested or to be further protected. I fear a curfew may give a false sense of security and may not be the most narrowly tailored solution at this time. And as you know, curfews have been struck down in the past under typhoon conditions. After a typhoon, it was struck down because it was not, the court said, ordering implementation of the curfew should contain reasonable limitations and be narrowly circumscribed to withstand a constant challenge for being overbroad and vague. And I just think it has to be very clear. That's why I've asked, I even asked, some of the doctors, can you just articulate, I've even asked the governor, can you articulate, the reason the curfew would be very helpful. And what she really said was, I can see from traffic that people are not staying at home. So that's why I went back and I looked at all the orders, and none of the orders order us to stay at home. They suggest that we not socialize, and they mandate that we not have groups larger than 50. They mandate that we not go to certain activities, and that we, businesses have to behave in certain ways. But this is the first time I'm seeing a shelter in place, and I guess I'm curious I don't know. I guess I'm just curious, Madam Speaker, because it was not articulated in the governor's letter to you about what she exactly wanted, curfew or shelter in place, and then, so I'm not closing the door on assisting the governor in any type of enforcement measures that she might need, but I do think that we need better articulation of the means, the methods that we are going to use and what we are going to enforce. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Right on.
Welcome, Senator Therese. Anyone else on the main motion? Senator Will, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just as a point of inquiry, if the prime author would yield, having heard the previous speaker, Madam Speaker, I do have a follow-up question, and the question is this. Looking at the substitute version, I can see that there's a major change. The previous speaker, to my understanding, is correct that we went from a curfew provision to an additional subsection 8 within that paragraph that would further authorize a shelter in place. And so, just for the record, so my colleagues will know clearly, is this in fact the intent? And if so, is there a definition in accordance with the prime author as to what a shelter in place would be And then I might have a follow-up question to that if the prime author would answer.
I will ask. Legislative Secretary, would you like to yield?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I will yield if you just give me a moment to get the definition for.
I will go ahead and give you that moment's recess.
Just pull it, Amanda.
Shot number 38. It's amazing how the author of the bill, the one who
Can't
placed
even
the
answer.
shelter in place, doesn't have the definition for shelter in place. That just goes to show you that
She
her
did not write that bill.
Yeah, and her speech sounded like Harlow Branch wrote it, matter of fact.
We
There-
see you, Amanda.
It's hard not to see you, Amanda. In a room, you are the backdrop. So, just from the original version of her bill, the original version was bad enough. It sounds like the substitute version increases the governor's power even further from the original version. But what people aren't talking about is it's more than a curfew. There's the number 7 that they add to the emergency powers, which says, through an executive order may implement a curfew for all residents. Probably the more important thing is the number 8. Through an executive order, limit all movement other than essential business, maintenance of life, sustenance, emergent medical needs. And this harkens back to the story about the governor confiscating medical supplies. This goes back to the several stories about the governor lying about many different things, least of which would be the application of federal funds for direct assistance, cash assistance to people, for unemployment benefits to people. The governor cannot be trusted to do these things.
Right. But also what Therese Terlahi was saying was that if you look at the statistics here in Guam, you got it in your own household.
Yeah. That was a really good point that she made. I didn't even think about that.
So that right there just tells you this whole shelter in place,
It's a sham.
It's a sham.
It's a sham. And I'll take it one step further than that. I'll be the conspiracy theorist this time
go
about
ahead.
it.
Yeah.
That this is just meant to push some sort of hidden agenda by the governor, and to have the legislature codify this so that it can happen, so that the governor does have the power to make this happen. And just the first thing here on the list of essential business, maintenance of life, and emergent medical needs, the very first thing is essential business. And we've seen what essential business that
Means
is.
to the governor.
You know, my goodness. Did you guys know that there are all these essential businesses, including dry cleaning? Dry cleaning, for crying out loud, is an essential business right now. I had to take a double take at that. But at Kmart, because of the governor's orders, you cannot buy Pampers.
Baby needs.
And
If I'm a brand new mother and I need to go and get bottles, car seat, I cannot buy it at Kmart.
Yeah.
I cannot.
I don't know. There's something wrong.
That part that does telling the stores what they can sell and what they cannot sell. What the government is telling us what is essential to us, I think should not be in play.
Yep. But as Senator Jim Moylan said, the governor already has these broad and extraordinary powers under the Emergency Health Powers Act, which passed in the legislature 20 years ago. Did the senators back then envision that the kind of emergency that Governor Leon Guerrero is running now would happen? I don't know, but they did give her this power.
Jesselyn Cabrera says she just bought, or no, Jesse Harrison said they just bought Pampers. Maybe they opened it up because of the complaints.
Oh, okay, good. Alicia says I need to buy a fan. Sorry, sister, there's no fans here. Brad Hewitt says Lou can't be forcing citizens in government quarantine either, but she is. The legislature better address that too.
Yeah, all those people that went from the airport into quarantine have every right to sue this government.
Jesse Mendiola.
Every right.
Jesse Mendiola said dry cleaning is essential because that is how they launder their money. Do you know anyone who's ever actually, like, literally washed their money?
I do. He's actually doing time
I love this story.
in federal.
Like, literally put it into the washing machine.
Yeah,
right?
I actually went to a friend's house to, and when I walk in, the whole kitchen, the stove, money is all over the countertops, everywhere. I swear to you, this is true. Gimen and Zeus. So I asked, because I went with a friend, I asked my friend, because I didn't want to ask the owner of the house. I said, what's going on? So he's like, later, we'll talk later. So when we get into the car, he says, someone told them they need to wash their money. Like, true story, bro. True story, bro.
Ashley Tambato got it right away. She said, yes, drug dealers. Oh, that's too funny.
That was a long time ago.
Frank Taito says she is on the same route as the Michigan governor. I don't know, what is the Michigan governor doing?
I don't know, but the president did state in one of his addresses, he will correct
All
of the wrong governors. So
when this thing is over,
I have
cannot
a
wait for
feeling,
that.
you know, if the shoe fits, I think he was talking about Guam.
Yeah, I think so. Jerry Guam says Kmart doesn't bank with Bank of Guam. But you know what, Jerry? There really is something to what you're saying, though.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it. Celeste Hernandez says you can buy diapers, but not clothes and car seats.
That is essential
Especially for newborns.
for babies.
For any babies,
Correct.
toddlers, they grow so fast.
I don't know. I just hope a whole investigation goes into this administration. I still believe in our federal partners. I believe in them 100. And they always seem to pop up when we need them the most.
I hope so.
Just when our dreams are.
Oh, Brad sent the Michigan deal on my WhatsApp. Sorry, Brad. I'll look at that. Jason Gumatata says Hafaday from San Antonio, Texas, where they still believe in freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Paris says the only one that washes their money are the tweakers. Yes, but do they wash their money in the washing machines? Brad Hewitt says that's BS, telling citizens what they can and can't buy. And so someone up here says, Frank Taito says that's already a violation of our rights by telling us what items are essential and what isn't. I know, man. Can someone do something about Kim Jong-lu? About her communist orders?
They're back.
You mean at 35 na las Turangohan is back from recess?
She says that better in the beginning of this when she became
Legislative
speaker.
Secretary,
Just
you
like-
are acknowledged.
Oh.
Watch
Thank you
from
very
today,
much,
from
Madam
the one
Speaker.
before.
So the
She-
retiring
she-
speaker asked for a clearer picture of what it meant for a shelter-in-place directive. And really the intent of this is to help the governor through executive order keep everyone home, because we know right now, we've heard over and over again, that the virus is spread by people, that the more we move around, the more we interact, the more the virus can spread. And so there has been encouragement to stop the social gathering, to stop big groups of gatherings, but this shelter-in-place directive would give her the authority to tell everyone essentially to stay home. And I know there was some concern about how far that meant, what staying home meant. Would it mean that we're locking the doors and locking the windows and you wouldn't be able to go outside? And no, that is not the intent. The intent here is for us to stay in our property, to be in our homes, quarantined with the people that we live with, and not to go out or to do anything except for the essential business. And so there's also some concern that maybe this is also too broad of a power. And so I ask again if the retiring speaker would like to work together to offer an amendment to really specify that here in the language, then I'm open to that.
So send it back to
Thank you,
committee.
Secretary. Senator.
Remember, the last big social gathering they had was that poker game.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do appreciate Senator
Okay.
Shelton for working with me on trying to understand what it is she's intending to accomplish with this particular part of the bill. And I was sharing that as educators, or at least those who are educators, when there's a shelter in place, there are strict protocols on how we implement that. And I was afraid, I expressed my concern that if it was the same understanding of a shelter-in-place protocol like you would at a school, then that would mean that we probably would have to lock our doors, close our windows, and secure ourselves within the confines of the four walls of our home. And I was expressing to my colleagues that that was overly restrictive, that if you couldn't walk around your yard or go on an adjacent property, in some parts of the island where the population density isn't as heavy, there aren't as many people, in my opinion, that would be overly restrictive. And so I'm glad to hear that the prime author never really intended for that to happen, but in fact to operate along the understanding that a shelter-in-place or a stay-at-home initiative, such as what this is attempting to accomplish, is meant to just keep you within the confines of your property. But even then, I did offer up the opportunity to collaborate on an amendment if and only if we could localize these types of ordinances or directives. Again, I can see how in a hazardous material spill in an area like a chlorine leak, you would order perhaps a shelter-in-place or a stay-at-home directive because you don't know which way the contaminant is going to spread. But if you're going to apply this stay-at-home, do not leave the confines of the four walls of your house, because we suspect that there's a high risk or a higher propensity for the virus to spread in your village without supporting data, I think that's overreaching and overstepping. But again, I'm glad to hear that that's not the case. And yes, I would be more than willing to work with the prime author and her team to articulate and define that in this statute or in this bill, so that there's no misconstruing what may otherwise be utilized as a broad sweeping power that, in my opinion, may overreach. So thank you again, Senator. I do appreciate. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity.
Well, no.
Senator Castro. Anyone else on the main motion?
Comments are so funny.
I know.
Is there any speakers? Senator Joseph Augustine, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, as all my colleagues are aware of, I have publicly stated that I'm not in support. I am a co-sponsor, so I respectfully request that my name be removed.
Right on, Joseph Augustine.
Of the bill.
On that motion, is there an objection? Hearing none, seeing none. Motion carries.
Thank you,
that's
Madam
Joe
Speaker.
and Tello so
Also,
far?
I'd like to mention that the curfew issue is number one. Prior to this, when this bill was first introduced, it had the good intention of establishing a curfew. I was hoping that maybe it may be similar to what the curfew is today with minors. But then all of a sudden, we had an executive order that started a roadblock. And maybe most of my colleagues here have not run into the roadblock, but I did on Saturday, the first day that they had the roadblock. And I was coming from Naval Station, from shopping.
No one likes white
And I was
chocolate.
stopped, and I was asked, or I was told first who they were and what they were there for. I said, okay. And then I was told that the road is closed. And on the newspaper, on the Post, the Attorney General said that the governor has the authority to close roads similar to a 5K. A 5K is never done in 12 hours, okay? It's done in a couple of hours. So we can strike the 5K. The 5K does not close the whole road. The whole road down in Aston was shut down. It was only one lane heading south, one lane heading north. And then I was told, it says, sir, the road is closed, only for essential travel. Then he asked me, where are you heading? I said, I'm heading home. And then he said, okay, travel safe. I'm like, huh? You know, we don't need a curfew to educate our people of Guam. That's number one. I think the people of Guam are being educated in all social means and in the newspaper everywhere. And we need to stop. The intent of the
They're just
curfew was
wasting
before
time.
the roadblock. And previous colleagues have mentioned we need to spend more money on our first responders and our folks that are on the front line. And if we want to invest in anything, take advantage of social media, take advantage of the newspaper, let the people know. I believe the people of Guam understand the importance of, what's that, social isolation or shelter in place. We're all doing that today. We're doing the 6 feet distance just to do our session. And I believe that the people of Guam has heard enough. We're confident that we're gonna conquer this virus. The last report came out and said there was 0 detected out of 33. I think we're heading towards a winning streak. And I hope that the people of Guam will continue to shelter in place or social isolation. Wear the mask when you go to the stores. Make sure that if the employees are not wearing a mask, don't go into the stores. You know, do what you need to do to protect yourself. And the people of Guam are doing that today. And I don't believe we need a curfew. And we need to end this. And if anything, this bill should just be taken off the discussion. But I'm not going to make that motion. We'll just continue discussing it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Buen provecho, Senator San Augustine. Senator Peter Terloy, I will recognize you. Consigliamo na po favor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You know, on line 9, the emergency powers, I'm kind of refuse to accept something like that, to give the governor the total authority to suspend the provisions of any regulatory statute. So with that, Madam Speaker, I ask that my name be removed from being a co-sponsor of this particular bill.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you.
All right, Pido.
On that motion, without objection, motion carries. Anyone else wishing to speak? Senator Muñoz, then Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, throughout the history, the courts have struck down many adult curfew laws with few exceptions. Some of these exceptions were for situations where there is a risk of violence or invasion or insurrection. Placing restrictions on the times that people can shop for groceries or get prescriptions or go to the post office or even just to get some fresh air or get some exercise, I don't think it'll make the people any safer. It will do actually just the opposite. If you think about it, such measures will concentrate the people in those areas during non-curfew hours. Madam Speaker, the vast majority of our residents are staying home. I believe that. Those that are going out buying groceries and other essentials, I don't think that we should be making curfew violations any type of criminal offense. For that, Madam Speaker, I cannot support this bill. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Senator Muñoz. Senator Moylan, you are recognized on the main motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the substitute version and had a chance to review it, but I also see on the substitute version some things I'm still not comfortable with. One of the main things is that the legislature is giving the authority to our governor based on an executive order to dictate a law, or introduce a law, giving more police powers.
Mm-hmm.
It's the senators, Madam Speaker. We give the policing powers, and then the governor enforces those. If the governor so wanted to do this, in which he has in the past, then introduce the bill. But that's not the situation. So I disagree with implementing more police powers based on an executive order. I also disagree with the curfew. And I feel I've seen less traffic on the roads, and I believe people are staying home. And I disagree with the new term of shelter in place. At the end, it still, to me, means stay at home. And I've heard our governor say that more, or daily, stay at home, and I echo the governor's importance of staying at home. But yet we want to get more power in Chapter 19 of Title 10. That is a super powerful law right now. We already have road closures, or traffic flow, or right-of-way, or just call it the Permanahau Bill. Where are you going? It's already implemented. We already implemented shutting down businesses. The governor has shut down businesses. The governor has shut down government offices, schools, parks, beaches, churches. And the governor has told us to stay at home. It's being done now. But I can't imagine having more roadblocks. It limits our movement even further. No, I don't want that. A movement like a police state, no, I don't want that either. I think it's unreasonable if we're going to pass this bill that would require the Guam Police Department to enforce it, to enforce curfew, to enforce essential movement.
You can't even help.
When we already know
some
their
people now.
manpower is so limited, their resources are so limited. We knew they had limitations even before this virus came into play. Where the governor could really help us out is by focusing our limited resources in those villages, because we know the presence of officers in the village is a deterrent. And with our situation now, and the governor saying stay at home, right? Just the presence in the village, I think that's further deterrent than adding more legislation to such a powerful law. If we're going to do any changes to Chapter 19, Title 10, it should look at transparency. Because right now, there's no reporting requirements. Hopefully our previous bill would at least talk about that for the federal funding. But really, the power to take somebody's business, the power to take somebody's property, there's so much power in there, but there's no reporting requirements. But we're not talking about that now. I can't vote on this bill. I won't vote on this bill. Well, my vote is no on this bill, actually. But I sure wish we had a public hearing, because I bet that public hearing will be packed of people that are opposing Bill 335. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Senator Clint Rigel, I will recognize you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. For the same reasons that I voiced my concerns with the prior bill, I have the same concerns with this bill. And again, just to reiterate, I think what we're doing now is working. That's not to say that we should abandon what we're currently doing and go back to going out in the streets at all hours, etc. I think we need to continue on the course that we've taken because it's working. So I don't see a need to further restrict ourselves. I think what we're currently doing is working just fine. And we should just continue on that course until we can figure out what to do next. So if you look at some of the states and the orders that they've done, most of the major cities are doing the same things that we've done here. New York is doing the same thing. They haven't done a full shelter in place. They closed down non-essential businesses. They closed restaurants and gatherings. They still allow takeout. My brother lives in San Francisco. They started their similar orders to ours around the same time we started ours, and they're seeing good results as well. My brother was telling me they're allowed to go to restaurants, but only to pick up takeout orders, just like we're doing here. They're allowed to go grocery shopping, just like we're allowed to do here. So they're allowed to have essential businesses. My brother's working from home. His girlfriend worked at a restaurant, and unfortunately, she ended up getting laid off. And that's the same stuff we're dealing with here. So it's working in the other jurisdictions. The data's showing that it's working. The data's showing that it's working here. So I think we just need to continue on this course. And I think any more restrictive actions would be a little too much at this time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome, Senator Rangel. Anyone else on the main motion?
How about you,
Senator
Tina?
Mary Torres, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to point out a point of information. You know, we're talking about the curfew and whether it's right and whether it infringes on civil liberties and whether it gives the governor too much power. But I understand that the whole genesis of this bill was to give by statute the authority for the governor to institute a curfew. And this all stems from a situation in 1976 when he had a super typhoon, and the governor at that time, Bordallo, instituted a curfew. It was challenged. There was a lawsuit in the District Court of Guam, and a ruling came down that basically said it was unconstitutional. There was a note also that Guam, you know, this power has to be provided by statute, and it wasn't. And so I can see, you know, when I remember when we were first briefed on the projections for this COVID outbreak, and many of us at that were party to that briefing by the governor and Dr. Cabrera were quite alarmed. And we all felt at that time that we needed to do everything within our power to help the governor curb that. So a lot of what happened with this Bill 335 was a good intended measure to facilitate, because we were quite alarmed, and we should still be quite alarmed with the potential spread of the virus if we don't contain our social interactions and limit it. But you know, I know that some people are falling off as co-sponsors, and I just wanted to lend support to the main sponsor of this bill, that I understand why, you know, it was a good measure coming off of the ruling that was made in that case, Gale v. the Governor of Guam, with the Guam National Chapter of American Civil Liberties Union as interveners in that case, in Civil Case 76-021. So, you know, a lot of times we're reacting to what we believe is the best course to address the situation. Now, our sentiments have changed since that briefing with the governor. And it's good to always remember, you know, where we stand in principle when it comes to the rights of movement of people. I believe, though, that, you know, I would also like to add that I believe that notwithstanding the demise of this bill, it's apparent that it's not going to advance much further or be signed into law. We still need to exercise extreme due diligence and lawfulness in adhering to executive orders and doing our part as citizens so that these extreme measures are not necessary. I mean, we're almost one step short of it, but I think that it's within our powers to continue to make it work. So to the author, I understand where you were coming from in introducing this, and it was a well-intentioned measure. And in looking at the prior ruling from 1976, that was the suggested next move if you needed to put these sorts of restrictions in place. So all good intentions, and I think most of us express the sentiment that we just want to do everything we can to support the containment and the flattening of the curve of the spread of this virus in our community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome, Senator Torres. Anyone else wishing to speak on the main motion? Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, can I just ask for a recess? I have an amendment I'd like to prosper that's with legal right now.
I will take a moment's recess.
Oh my goodness.
39.
39. Once they get to 40, that should have been 40 shots for my birthday.
We're gonna come back and recess till tomorrow.
No.
4:15. You know, they still have, I'm sure Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes does not want to end this session without trying to get
Anything.
her tax refunds bill on the agenda. Because she needs a win. Politically, the speaker has just been doused in the governor's fire, and the governor lit it and then ran away.
Yeah.
Now, the speaker needs to resurrect herself from those ashes, and I think she's hoping that her Bill 327, which is the tax refunds bill, which is fiscally sound, will do that for her.
I will never let you burn, Cello.
Oh, thanks, Chella.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So you'll take the
You're
fire.
damn right.
You'll take the gasoline away from me.
You know it, baby.
Imagine that. And Telos Heidegger made a very, very good point about it. She said, how come if this was so important to the governor didn't introduce this bill herself and call us into session? Well, I think because the governor doesn't mind sacrificing her people, what do you call them?
Yeah, she doesn't.
She doesn't mind asking them or demanding of them in the legislature to sacrifice themselves so that the heat is not always on her. And if you ask me, politically, that's just very selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Very selfish. So now, and Tina Muñoz Barnes, poor thing, she was like, the governor asked me to do this. I'm not even going to ask you guys for support. Let's just debate this. Let's just talk about it. And boy, did they talk about it.
So
and
she can say, I did my part.
Yeah, and I don't know. If I were advising Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes, I would tell her, no, don't. If the governor wants this to pass, let her introduce it. Let her be the one with her name on it. Just stay away from this.
How do you think Amanda's feeling right now?
Hungry?
Merienda?
Yeah, it's past 3 p.m., so.
Heavy Miranda?
Heavy Merienda. I think like in Europe, they call this supper time, right?
Yeah.
And then dinner is something else. It's like later or something. Is that what it is?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I've never been to Europe. Kelly Marsh Tyson is matching again with her mask and her.
Oh.
You see that? You see that? What color is that?
That's,
Tiffany blue.
Yep. Baby blue.
Tello is matching her chair.
Right.
Well, it looks kind of somber in there, huh?
Yeah.
No one's talking to anyone.
Maybe because nothing's really getting done. Nothing's done again today.
No, absolutely something was done today. They defeated the Dictator Act.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have been introduced in the first place.
They should be talking about Oh, didn't they need to pass Bill 333 in the voting file, right? That's the important one, the federal one. Maybe they'll get to that. Maybe they'll go to that and then they'll come back to debating stuff.
Eric says after these marathons, he's so beat. And then he
Yeah, I'm
says,
tired already.
you think pushing buttons is easy?
What's wrong?
I don't know.
It is not easy sitting in this chair and being an armchair quarterback. It is not easy making fun of some of these senators all day long. Can you do the comments, Charlotte, while I do the
Sure.
Clinton Ridgell news on this?
Comments.
Clint Ridgell.
Oh, I can't do much. It's only giving me very little. Yes, we are waiting on the stimulus packages. If you go to www.candidnews.com, Michael Siniklis, our congressman, sent a letter over to Mnuchin. How do you say his name?
Mnuchin.
Mnuchin, letting him know that our governor is misinterpreting the law and misinforming the people of Guam. So he wants them to write a letter, I guess, to tell her, when you do steps 1, 2, 3, steps, and then you follow step 1, you follow, then you go to number 2, and then you go to number 3, and then number 4 says go back to number 1. So he just needs them to write a letter to the governor to help her out interpret the law, the federal law, because the governor's trying to make it her own when the federal government has stated that this is what it is and this is what should be done.
The governor should get rid of her attorney.
He's not an attorney.
He's been giving her bad advice.
That's like me saying I have a degree. Or no, that's like me saying I'm an attorney.
We would give her better legal advice than he does. But we do have information from Congressman. Oh no, I'm standing by for a news release from the congressman regarding the Congressional Veterans Advisory Council.
Jose Martinez says this emergency session turned into the COVID-19 emergency to protect our re-election emergency.
I love his comments.
Denise Pangilinan says because her son-in-law is trash. Just like Bill 334 should just go in the trash. Brad says, I bet Carlo was really blowing in Lou's ear. I don't think he could reach it. I'm pulling strings. Fida Roberto says he got his bar certificate from his Cracker Jack pack. I went to nursing school and have 3 semesters left. Doesn't make me a nurse. Anthony Perez, the funniest bill and the most ridiculous bill is the fire bill. Ayade Timongi Edzu na bill. That's Troy's barbecue bill. Anti-barbecue bill.
The Anti-Barbecue Act of 2020. I believe it's still up for debate, actually. It's in one of those standby folders in the legislature. Either that or maybe did I forget that Kelly Marsh actually talks about it and threw it aside for a second?
Yeah, she put it back.
She threw it aside? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Good. But to be fair to Kelly Tyson, I don't think that she realized that her stupid bill had the effect of banning barbecues. It's just an example of not thinking things through in the language of things.
Mary Sanchez says, what happened to the lieutenant governor?
I don't know. I mean, he's there. I think Jose Martinez said he's a wallflower who became the wall.
Yeah.
But most of the comments about the lieutenant governor that I've been seeing lately, not just on Kandit, but on different people's whatever, right, is that guy's probably thinking, man, did I make a mistake running with this lady?
Well, say it.
They're probably right about what he's thinking.
Well, then he should just say it.
Maybe he'll run for governor. Oh, that would be something.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Imagine what that primary election would be like. Like, what would he do? Expose like all his...
No, but what can he say why we should choose him? What's the reasons?
I don't know.
Nothing.
We'll say he made a bad choice at first, I guess. Senator Clint Richel.
Oh, Jose Martinez says Lieutenant Governor is buried under his layers of defense.
Announces.
This administration needs to stand by and recess indefinitely with exceptions. He always been a flower, definitely not a wall. More like a beanbag.
I almost choked on my sweet and sour.
How about Tony Babalta? Where is he? Asked Mel Flo.
Oh no. Oh no, that's right, huh? Well, I haven't really been paying attention to those governor's news conferences. So, has he been there? I don't know.
Ashley Tamundo says he's rubbing Hit Lou's feet. Stephen Linnell says Lieutenant Governor is the MAGA ha-ha's pretty boy.
Well, I don't know if he's pretty.
Maga Gela. How do you, what is
The governor is the MAGA Gaga, and the lieutenant governor is the
No, she's the MAGA hot mess.
the Gela Haga.
The food they serve quarantine site Pacific Star is is the vomiting emoji.
So it takes so long to do one of these like news graphics, and then to post it on all the different blah blah blah.
Did it come in yet from Congressman Nicholas?
Not yet.
So we are in recess 39. But when did they say they're going on recess? Oh, they're waiting on the lawyer, right?
Yes, they're always waiting on their counsel. They pay their counsel $132,000 a freaking year.
And then additional for those other councils,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Also, that their counsel can't be ready with all these things when the senators need it. I say they're overpaying their counsel.
They serve raw food, clearly not paying attention, just spoon the slop in the container.
So far on to defeat this, it's not just that I wish they would stop calling it a curfew bill. This does more than institute a curfew. It gives the governor the authority really to restrict commerce even more. Basically, it's an entire takeover of the private sector if she wanted to. There are 6 who so far have announced their opposition to this bill. That's Joseph Augustine, Tello Tadigui, Pito Terlahi, Luis Munya, Jim Moylan, and Clint Rigel. All that's needed is 2 more announcements of opposition, and the bill's defeated. And Mary Torres did say something interesting, and she probably knows more than we do because, they're on the floor right now and they're probably discussing it during these recesses. She said that this bill is heading to failure. So maybe she's aware of maybe she's aware that she is not going to vote for it. She just hasn't said that. Maybe she's aware that someone else is also opposed to it, but it needs 8 votes to fail.
Jovi Castro's asking, do we have any updates on the SNAP program with the increase? Like, when will it be sent out?
Let's try calling civil defense.
Hi, my Johnny girl.
Hi, can I call you back? We're still alive. Hello?
I miss you, babe.
Hello, hello? I think it was a butt dial.
RBL and Paris gonna vote no. Are they part of that?
No, that's extra.
Well, that's according to Brad. I don't know how Brad knows that. DT says the demise of this bill.
Hi, may I please speak with Chuck Estevez?
Chuck Estevez, sure, one moment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, my baby. they approved my,
Which one?
the one sarcasm page.
Oh. We're waiting for either the Guam legislature to come out of recess or Chuck Estevez at Civil Defense to answer our phone call. We're gonna ask him about the whole food stamps thing. He did tell us a couple of weeks ago that Guam hadn't been approved yet for the individual assistance program.
Hello, Troy. Hang on a second, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I have a cigarette?
Yeah. It's been so hot lately, huh?
It's because the governor is the devil and she resides on Guam.
Well, you know, it takes a lot for me to sweat, and I'm sweating.
Hello.
Hi, Chuck.
Hello. Hey,
Hi, Chuck. This is Johnny, Troy, and Kandit Land. As we're waiting for the legislature to come off as we're waiting for the legislature to come off of session, we have many people asking us about the expansion of food stamps benefits. I know a couple of weeks ago you said that Guam hadn't been approved yet for the individual assistance program. Do you know if that's changed?
No, so we're still not approved for individual assistance at this time.
Do you know if anyone sent a follow-up letter to FEMA?
No, so none of the states and territories have been approved for individual assistance at this time. I am in these calls. We actually had a teleconference with the region on the Recovery Division's Director, Region 9, on Saturday.
Is that Fenton?
So I did, no, well, Rob Pestine.
Okay.
And we actually have a OCONUS call on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and sometimes Bob Fenton does join in those calls.
Okay.
And the issue of IA is brought up, and not only from us, but the other territories and states in Region 9.
Okay.
And it's still the same answer. It comes back. A determination has been made at this time for IA.
I think there's a growing issue now with people who, especially, there's this growing issue with people being able to afford food.
Yes.
So you guys are pushing it.
So the food stamps continues to be a public health program, and I know there's accepting applications, I believe. But on the individual assistance side, it's normally some post-disaster assistance.
Yeah.
Right. So if we were approved for IA, then we would have our disaster recovery center. People would come in. They would actually fill out their application. The individual assistance is for U.S. citizens and certain eligible permanent aliens, I believe. So that a lot of that stuff happens post disaster. I don't know what more to say about that, but as of now, we're only approved for public assistance category B, emergency protective measures.
Okay. Chuck, one more thing. 4 years ago, then Senator Mike Nicholas introduced a bill requiring the government of Guam to come up with an operational continuity plans that theoretically, if that had passed into law, many of the problems we're seeing now with the inaccessibility of government services because operational integrity has been jeopardized wouldn't be issues right now. What's your position on that? In retrospect, should that bill have become law, and should a bill like that now become law to deal with the future crisis?
Yeah, so we already pushed for agencies to have a continuity plan or continuity of operations plan. We have one here at Homeland, right? Civil Defense. But the problem with that bill at the time, as I mentioned, when I actually went and testified against it, was very, very limiting and very prescriptive, and it doesn't really capture the intent of continuity operations or continuity of governments. I can tell you that what's listed in the 2008 pandemic plan, a lot of that information is useful when it comes to the handling of businesses, and it's not, it may not. I mean, when I say business, I'm talking about government of Guam, the daily business of government operations. And although it may not have by agency, what the agency is supposed to do to continue on, I can tell you that given the novel, how novel this event is, I mean, we never expected to be shutting down government, right?
Yeah.
We never expected that we wouldn't be able to provide services the way we're doing now, which is to promote social distancing, but a lot of emailing, a lot of online services, or the push for online services. So I can tell you that this is definitely something that for future operational planning, and I think in the Guam Conference Emergency Management Plan as well, in our pandemic annex, is something that needs to be looked at post-event to ensure that specific agencies are able to function given a social distancing or isolation type of protocol.
Once this whole thing gets to a point where whitewashes are able to be done and best practices are able to be looked at in retrospect, and for making some of them in the future, are you guys gonna consider? Or are you willing to sit down? Is the oversight chairman Pito Terlahi, right? And come up with something that goes along the lines of what Congressman San Nicolas intended at the time? Maybe not the same thing, but...
Yeah, and so I didn't oppose that. My brother actually had a similar bill as well.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so I wasn't, it's not that I wasn't opposed to the idea, I just was opposed to what should be in it.
So the details of
because
it.
There's a lot, there's a lot more that goes into a continuity operations. We actually have literature from FEMA on how to make a good continuity operations planning. There is a continuity planning guidance version 2, I believe, that we utilize. There's some frameworks from FEMA, such as the National Disaster Response Framework and National Disaster or National Response and National Recovery Frameworks. And so it was too prescriptive, just in my opinion. And I, like I said, I'm 100% for continuity operations and continuity government planning. It's just it should follow nationally recognized frameworks.
Okay, cool.
On how to do it.
And just last thing, because I'm very curious, Chuck, do you happen to know how in the world the governor of Saipan got 20,000 test kits?
Yeah, so we all our test kits are vetted through the CDC and HHS.
Yeah.
And so I believe they source those from Asia. We've had many offers for similar test kits. And so we can vet those test kits and ensure that we actually have the machines on island that can run those tests. And just to let you know, there are many components to the test. So we can have like 10,000 test kits and 10,000, swab kits or whatever the kit may be.
Yeah.
But if we don't have the reagent, the RNA extraction kits that go with it, then it's just going to be 10 or 20,000 samples that are sitting in the fridge.
I see.
So a lot of people don't understand that test kit is not as simple as just as simple as swabbing someone's cheek and running it in the machine.
So when Saipan starts sending their tests from those test kits over to Guam, there might be an issue with completing the test so that you get a result then.
I don't know at this time. I do know that the test kits, with like I said, with all the components of it that come from HHS, I do know that we do support the U.S. affiliate Pacific Islands, which does include the CNMI, the Marshall Islands, RMI. So like I'll give you an example. We actually had a shortage of the RNA extraction portion of it, and so we managed to get a two-box resupply of that. So we weren't. It's not that we weren't able to test, but we were running low on that component of the test kit.
Okay.
But more to follow on that. I'm not. There is a I want to say FDA approved test kit that's supposed to be a rapid, like 10 to 15 minute test kit.
Yeah.
And so we're still trying to source that. Still trying to see who's the vendor. I can tell you that there are a lot of PPE. There are a lot of test kits out there that are actually not FDA approved, not really approved for use in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
They may be approved by some other countries' FDA, but we want to make sure that everything we have, especially since they're given to first responders, that they are valid and usable products. And even some of the U.S. manufacturers for like PPE, some of the brands out there, they actually failed fit testing for some of our first responders. So we want to make sure that we get the right brand and the right product. Fit testing is good for these like N95 masks. The test kits we got are FDA approved and CDC recognized. So there is a vetting process, guys, because I can tell you that there is a lot of counterfeit products being distributed out there and being sold.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Chuck. Thanks so much for your time.
Just call me if anything.
Appreciate it. Okay, bye.
Okay, thank you all. Bye.
That was an 11-minute conversation, and the legislature's still not back. Huh?
No food stamps.
Oh, no food stamps. Yeah, no food stamps. I forgot that was the beginning of that. And the legislature's not back in session.
They're gonna stretch it and recess it tomorrow.
Yeah, right? That's what they're gonna do. Let's see. Ugh.
Just say no.
I know, they can never mind all this amendment stuff if just 2 more of them come out and say
No.
no. We got 6 so far.
Oh, that thing, the Higher Guam. Let me read
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So Kandit got an email from Mallory Cruz, and she is the Special Projects Coordinator with Guam Department of Labor. And the letter says, for immediate release, employers and businesses must register on Hire Guam. The Guam Department of Labor is requiring all employers and business owners who have displaced workers to register on the department's virtual one-stop system, hireguam.com. Employers and business owners must register their organization if they are experiencing business shutdowns, layoffs, and furloughs and reduced hours caused by COVID-19. This requirement is authorized by Executive Order number 2020-07, in which businesses must comply with required reporting regarding reduction in workforce or employee hours. The registration requirement is set in place for the department to have a dual verification process for when employees apply for Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, PUA, along with federal pandemic unemployment compensation. The department urges employers, business owners, including those who are self-employed, to follow the steps to register indicated below. 1, go to hireguam.com. That's hireguam.com. Click on Not Registered on the home page. Scroll down to option 3 and click on Employers and Agents. Specify what type of user that you are. Enter in your company identification information. Set up username and password and enter in company's information. Click Save. Once successfully registered, you will receive a welcome message in your inbox. Businesses will also receive an email requesting for a valid business license. I recognize that this is an extremely challenging time for all Guamanians. Guam Department of Labor Director David De La Soya said, I understand the urgency and we want the public to be aware of the steps that we are taking to assist the people of Guam as fast as we can. We know that workers are struggling, which is why we need employers and business owners to comply with registration so that their displaced employees can receive their benefits. The department would also like to remind employers and business owners to issue out a certification letter to their displaced workers indicating if they were furloughed, laid off, or have reduced hours due to COVID-19. GDOL will need the certification letter to cross-verify the employment status of displaced workers within the Higher Guam system.
Cool.
So there you go. It's moving forward. So please, small business owners, big business owners, register at higherguam.com.
Cool. We'll put that into the story. We have a magistrate's report dealing with family violence.
I saw that.
24-year-old Susan May Meno and 22-year-old Camille Jesusa Meno of, Dictator have been charged, or are the prosecutor Sean Brown is bringing family violence charges against both of them because yesterday police met with a man who explained that he disconnected the water and power to a residence to force his sister and children out of the house. This man told police that after disconnecting the utilities, he confronted his sister and children. The man said that his sister's daughters, Susan Meno and Camelin Meno, approached him and a struggle ensued where Susan Meno struck him twice in the face and Camelin Meno swung a golf club at him. Police noted that the man had redness and slight swelling to his cheek. Susan Meno and Camelin Meno were interviewed and both admitted to hitting their uncle, but Camelin Meno denied hitting her uncle with a golf club. What brats. There's another magistrates, but it's just drug possession.
A firearm too.
Oh, it's firearm and drug possession.
They're packing up to go.
How
Tim
long?
Boylan's wrapping his.
How long have they been in
board.
this? What do you call it? Recess, yeah. Oh, if you guys want to send messages to the sailors aboard the Teddy Roosevelt, to the family and friends of the sailor who died yesterday, please do a selfie video. We've been getting some already. Some senators have already sent their selfie videos as well, so we're going to include those. Eric or Carlos, because I haven't even talked to them yet about it, are going to put together a compilation, just like the first one we did. You can send the video to my WhatsApp at 671-456-4237, or you can email it to us at news@kanditnews.com or troy@kanditnews.com. Oh, but if you can send that today so that we can get the compilation out quickly.
Well, it looks like Payless has disposable masks. They were allowed.
Oh, must be nice to be pay less.
Look, and it's $40 a pack. Lou didn't take that. Lulabelle didn't take that.
Well, as Payless said, that isn't price gouging. That's just always how important how expensive their products are. Again, I note that the Post is reporting that Senator Regine Lee said that she does not support Bill 335. Let me get confirmation of that, so that we can up the count to 7.
They're like, Amanda, just pull it, Amanda. Never mind the governor right now. There. Therese Terlahi saying, just stop it, kids. I really wonder what they're saying. Who is that behind Tello? Meritorious.
Oh, back from session.
Break.
Back from break.
Mina Chanta Cinco na las Turn. Guahan is back from recess. Vice Speaker Nelson, I understand you have several amendments. Please proceed. You are recognized.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's one amendment that will be placed in section 2 after the rules and regulations requirement. Colleagues, do you have this amendment up?
Where's Jimmy? He's not there.
I think what a lot of people who are owed tax refunds are waiting for is for the legislature to do something about tax refunds.
Mm-hmm.
And the sooner they get off this
But they
retarded
don't
dictator
even
bill,
need to do that. The governor can just pay it out on her own.
this is true.
Why do we need a law?
She certainly can. If she cared about tax refunds.
No, not if she cared about tax refunds, if she cared about the people of Guam.
Yes. But she doesn't.
Yeah. Jacob has a question.
Oh, what's Jacob's question?
Troy, what's the total amount we spend every year on senator staff, all their costs, etc., for legislative branch?
Oh, not like individual office?
Mm-mm.
Let's see. Okay. Let's go to guamlegislature.com.
Prim, you okay? Do you need me to get you something?
No.
Okie dokie, last year,
Okay, Madam Speaker, thank you. Thank you, colleagues, for your patience. Madam Speaker, I'd like to proffer an amendment, and the purpose of this amendment, it was brought up in the dialogue that we were having, was the many questions that we had in our minds about how we are moving forward as a community to understand this COVID-19 crisis. And so, Madam Speaker, there's a lot of concern about civil liberties being taken away, There's a lot of concern about restriction of movement of personnel or people. And so just to ensure that the community is brought forward on the actions being taken within our government, I wanted to proffer this amendment where the governor would have to show the community plans of actions for certain individual items that our colleagues brought up. So the first one, I'll just read the beginning. It's prior to exercising her authority under 10 GCA subsection 19403 alpha 7 through 8, relative to curfew and shelter in place, the governor shall make available to the public: 1, any and all plans for obtaining and distributing test kits for COVID-19 on Guam and future plans for conducting tests on Guam. 2, any and all information regarding the number of personal protective equipment, PPE, available to the government of Guam and plans to obtain distribution PPE in response to the COVID-19 health emergency. 3, to the extent practicable, information regarding known public places at which any confirmed positive COVID-19 individual has frequented 7 days prior to testing positive. And 4, to the extent practicable, access to COVID-19 testing for individuals who have come into close contact with another confirmed COVID-19 positive individual. And so in item 1, first, Madam Speaker, we start with prior to her being able to exercise the authority for the curfew in response only to COVID-19. We're not giving her curfew authority for everything when she would declare an emergency. This is specifically for the crisis we are in today. So prior to her being able to exercise that authority, Madam Speaker, that we would be granting her, she must first provide to the public, provide to the people of Guam, any and all plans for obtaining and distributing test kits for COVID-19 on Guam and future plans for conducting tests on Guam. Madam Speaker, the reason why this is because 2 weeks ago, we heard that we were going to get 4,000 test kits. But myself and even some of my colleagues, our colleagues, we don't know the status of those test kits. We don't know those 4,000 test kits came in 2 weeks ago, if we're utilizing them now. And so really, the target is moving, but we're not following the target. Number 2, any and all information regarding the number of personnel, protective equipment available to the government of Guam, and plans to obtain distribution PPE in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Madam Speaker, Customs and Quarantine has this form, and it says, mandatory customs declaration regarding the importations of items related to COVID-19. The Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency, pursuant to its mandate under Chapter 73 of Title V Guam Code Annotated, and under the authority of the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services in the exercise of its public health emergency powers outlined in Chapter 19 of Title 10 Guam Code Annotated, require the affirmative declaration of any importation, in vitro diagnostic tests, personal protective equipment, medical devices and supplies, antitoxin serums, vaccine, immunizing agents, antibiotics, or pharmaceutical agents and/or ventilators. The exercise of this authority is imperative due to the need to ration supplies for the purpose of responding to the public health emergency as well as to prevent the importation of counterfeit items. You are hereby notified that any of the above listed items is subject to the control, restriction, and regulatory powers of DPHSS and may be confiscated. That means ventilators brought in from businesses, protective equipment being brought in, these things may be confiscated. False statements made to a custom officer are punishable by law. Failure to declare such items to a custom officer may result in fines and penalties. So you have that paragraph where whoever is the business bringing in the items would sign the authority over to CQA of the items brought in.
That's already.
And then we have this Guam Energy Solutions Inc., GESI, who writes, Dear GESI friends, family, and customers, I regretfully have to inform you that we are unable to place our order for PPE, personal protective gear, period. The Department of Revenue and Taxation, in conjunction with the Department of Customs and Quarantine, have issued a notice violation with a cease and desist order to Green Energy Solutions stating that our current retail business license is insufficient to sell these products. I have attached a copy of the new regulation to Department of Public Health and Social Services. To those who have made payment via check, you may pick up your checks at the office, or you may request that we mail your checks back to you. If you wish to have your check mailed, please email. So it's like, did their items get confiscated? Did personal protective gear get confiscated? Are we running short on our resources in our hospitals, in our front line? Are we running short? Is that why we're executing this order? And so that's the purpose for number 2. We don't know the state of our PPE. And so it's curious that as a government, we're going to issue notice of violations for things that businesses bring in that would help address this COVID-19 crisis, this pandemic. I mean, it's like our actions are saying this is urgent, but our mouths are saying that it's not. Number 3, to the extent practicable information regarding known public places at which any confirmed positive COVID-19 individual has frequented 7 days prior to testing positive. And I'd like to read number 4 because they kind of married each other. Number 4 is to the extent of practicable access to COVID-19 testing for individuals who have come into close contact with another confirmed positive COVID-19
Are you
individual.
lost?
So, Madam Speaker,
I don't know either.
if I test positive and I'm around all my colleagues and I go home and I test positive, what's going to happen to our colleagues is that they're just gonna say, okay, you've been tested positive, Selena has been tested positive. She was around you in the past 7 days. You need to quarantine for 14 days. But Madam Speaker, what should happen is, Selena tested positive. We're going to test you if you also have COVID-19. And we're going to also research and surveil the past 7 days where I have been traveling and test those people as well. And that brings up the question of the 4,000 test kits we were told that we were going to get several weeks ago. And so, Madam Speaker, I know that, and colleagues, I know that this is difficult, but we're trying to, I'm hoping that I would have your support for this amendment, because I too don't want to take away our civil liberties. Many of us fought for that in this room. Senator Pito fought for our civil liberties. I don't want to take that away. I want to ensure that the people are brought forward in what is really happening in this COVID-19 crisis. And I want to make sure that we give the governor the tools so that she can act
She doesn't mean
and respond to
anything.
the COVID-19 crisis. And we want to make it very clear
I don't know.
that you can't just do this on a whim. You can't just do this because you feel like it. You must prove to the public that these are the actions you have taken or will take to implement this curfew. So colleagues, I humbly ask for your support on this amendment. Thank you.
Judge Mossi, Vice Speaker. Anyone else wishing to speak on the amendment? Anyone? Senator Teresa Lai,
I
you
have
are
no idea
recognized.
what her amendment is.
I know.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I can see what the author is doing with this amendment, and she's kind of predicating any use of curfew powers on actual, transparency and reporting of information to the community. And I support that, Madam Speaker. I've as you know, I am the health chair of the Guam legislature, and I've tried every single day, even weekends, even nights, to follow up on the promises that have been made as to procurement of supplies, particularly, when we have nurses calling us up crying about PPE being rationed, or, we've got so many people. I'm sure every senator here has heard these stories about they're not getting their supplies necessarily directly from who you would think they're going to get it from. They're getting it from nonprofits, they're getting it, from donations, and it's very worrisome. I mean, I want to thank all of those who have come together. The nurses at UOG have come together to provide, food, supplies to GMH. I mean, I think they've been, asked now to create a concoction for hand sanitizer that can be used consistently. And of course, so I tried to find out what is the deal? Who are we chasing down for these things, and why can't we just get very clear, truthful reports as to what sources they've looked at, what's not panning out and why. And, we were so optimistic when we heard about FDA approval about certain things, and it's all just seems to be taking very long. But as I told you also before, I try to balance all of that with knowing that the people who are in charge are, the Guam Public Health Authority, according to our statute, that has authority to do all of this is in a pandemic crisis, is the Public Health Director. And as you all know, public health was always, they've got so many mandates. And when they came up, stepped up to work on this pandemic plan, they did a great job. But things change so fast, Madam Speaker, and I don't think they've ever stopped working for a minute, and I feel for them. But because they have worked very, very hard. But things have not panned out, I know this, and I know that then things shift. And then we heard of the creation of a CURE, medical advisories group, and got some indication that they were going to prioritize what the supplies that were needed, and then it shifted a little bit. I don't know, because it's not laid out for us, and we're all getting it from just verbally, I guess. So there was a certain point when, and we know that there are different medical people in the community who some of them like to track data. For example, Dr. Lombard, and I love to watch his data tracking on Facebook. And he has consistently asked the government to produce certain information so that at least for his purposes, he thinks the data could be tracked better and that we could do our transmission investigations or contact tracing investigations. If we released more information from that he could, we could rely more on the results, I guess. And then of course, so try to not impede what they're doing, yet, still we're answering every day to nurses, to people who are on the front lines asking us, where are these things, where are these things, where are these things? Doctors, they want to know, where are the tests? Who's going to get the tests when we finally get them? And, how will they be distributed? And so I've asked very often for that information to be put out there for the nurses, for the doctors, for the public. And I think, as I said before, it's crucial that the public hear this kind of information. That's how we build their trust. And that's how, they can trust that the government's got this, that they're sparing no efforts. I wrote a letter similar to this amendment to the governor, and really what it was is just to ask that, or to suggest that during their press conferences, if they could just consistently, give us up-to-date information regarding the availability and procurement of certain supplies, and I listed which supplies I thought people really want to hear about. And the trace investigation information. And a lot of this that I again formally requested was just kind of to back up like Dr. Lombard's request for information so that we would have another source of analysis. And again, I feel like the more information, the better. It should be consistent. We should know the status. We should know the problems we are having. I think that is the success that we have seen across other states. They just need to know. And I know that different senators in here, just from talking to you all, that they've all had these same experiences, that they're all very concerned because they get the same calls from people who are concerned. People who have not been tested, who need to be tested, who want to be tested. Senators, they've all heard these concerns. I think senators have all tried their own ways to figure out how, we were getting supplies into Guam. I remember early on, Madam Speaker, asking you, where are the, you talked to me about test kits from Korea. I think that's what we talked about. And we were really believing that all of that was going to come to fruition. So I just think, a part of it is really just, I'm not saying that we failed. I'm saying that we have not communicated well our successes and our limitations, and that we could, and that we should be very aggressive in seeking help when we need help, very aggressive in seeking alternate sources if we run into dead ends. There should be no stopping us. And so I know that some of these duties have shifted throughout the government, so there's no one really to blame because it's shifting, and we need to work together. And so I've offered over and over, how can I help you? I don't want to be critical of contact tracing investigations if we can't help. I don't want to be critical of getting supplies if there's something that we can do to help you to get these supplies. And so I see that you've created an advisory board for COVID, Madam Speaker, and that's commendable. I think we need to know who are we really going to rely on to actually come through with these things. We've seen many offers. I think I just heard about the offer from Taiwan just fell through. Offers, promises, and then we don't see that, and then we're still restricted on testing. And so again, testing is one of these things that our hope and our way out of this is going to be testing, and so that's a very fair request or ask for information, Madam Speaker, and I support the intent that before you compel people to do things, let's convince them that we need to. For example, we don't have ventilators, so you don't want to get into the ICU. You don't want to get this if you have a respiratory illness or whatever, you know, for any reason. You don't want to be put in that situation. That scares me enough, you know, that I convinced my family to stay home. And it's, you know, but different information will be compelling for others, you know, like the lack of testing. If testing is the key, that's going to tell everybody stay in place until we get it. But we're going to get it at this date, you know what I mean? There's some hope, and there's some reason to how we are going to rebuild ourselves here, Madam Speaker, after all of this. And we all know testing is the key. And I just say, the more reliable the source of the information, the better. So, thank the sponsor for this amendment. Thank you.
Chief Spasi, Senator Teresa. Anyone else on the amendment? Anyone else? Minority Leader, you're recognized.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam Speaker, I looked at this amendment and said to myself, well, the governor should already provide us this information.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many times the media has asked the governor some of these questions. But for some reason, public health seems that they can't always divulge in the location of those who've been tested positive. I'm still baffled as to why they can't give us that kind of information. It's important in tracing. And most importantly, it's important for us as individuals. Did we attend this function? Were we at this grocery store? Were we at this one office space? That way we can be very careful, put our own self into isolation, contact those people that are around us, that I was at this area and I saw you the other day. So please, isolate yourself. But unfortunately, some of this information, for whatever reason she's holding back, she's not giving it to us. But I truly believe that, Madam Speaker, the governor is doing the best she can with what she has and trying to stay in her lane. But this particular amendment here, it's a dilemma, or it's a bargaining tool to let her have curfew, to give her the authority to implement curfew.
Amen.
So,
get off.
Point of personal privilege, Madam Speaker.
Please state your point of personal privilege, Vice Speaker.
The amendment are conditions if she wants to institute curfew. There's no bargain here.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Minority
It is a
Leader,
bargaining chip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
please proceed.
So once again, this is a bargaining tool to give you curfew.
Yes, you
Point of personal privilege, Madam Speaker.
Oh my gosh, I'm calling it the way I see
Go
it,
ahead.
and if she doesn't like it, I'm really sorry about that, but it's
Minority Leader,
technically
please.
a
Yes.
bargaining tool.
Minority Leader, please. You are out of order. Vice Speaker, please state your point of privilege.
The amendment
It's a bargaining tool, right?
is a requirement
She has the floor.
that the governor must give to the people of Guam if she is to institute a curfew. It is not a bargaining tool. These requirements is providing a sure plan that we don't know about.
No, just kill the bill.
It is not a bargain. There's no scheming here.
There is.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Minority Leader?
Thank you, Madam
Yes,
Speaker. Again, if the governor doesn't act on these 4 measures here, then she can't have the curfew. So if that's not bargaining, I don't know what is. So moving forward, no, I have the privilege, Madam Speaker, to speak my mind. And when I see something that looks this way, I have the option to say so. Just as the good speaker before me, point of privilege she has, and I let her speak. Now it's my turn.
Thank you.
Again, Madam Speaker, shelter in place, all these 4 circumstances that she has to provide us. I already know that number one is very simple for the governor to say, okay, well, I'm doing the best I can. In fact, she's been mentioning when test kits are coming, not even the governor, but public health has. Now, whatever happened to those 4,000 test kits that were coming, I don't know. Maybe somebody else picked it up. Sometimes Guam always seems to be the last to receive anything from the state. Information with regards to PPEs,
Killed the bill already.
they're already starting, like it was said earlier. They've already had the customs. I had a person who called me yesterday, just up in arms, a wholesaler. They were bringing in PPEs, but they received this letter from public health that they can confiscate this. So he's saying to me, then why should I even bring in PPEs for the people of Guam who really need it? If they're going to take it from me, seize it from me at commercial port, where it's coming in, and then I'm gonna rely on the government to pay me for those? He says, I'd rather not do it. I'm gonna lose out. And by the way, are they gonna pay me based on my landing cost or what I would have paid for or what I've sold it for out to the public? He said that so many of the other vendors are gonna follow his suit.
Yeah, if we need it,
Those
why
are
did
the
they
kind of
order it
things that we
themselves?
need to go out and assist our business people. I mean, seizing things
We'll be blending.
is
few seconds.
totally bad. Totally wrong. Section 3 of this amendment. And this is the same, actually 3 and 4 are the ones that, as I mentioned earlier, about trying to find out from the administration and public health on these areas. Because I tell you, there's a lot of anxiety about areas that everybody has been, if somebody was there that was infected and they didn't know about it. It would really ease up, kind of like what they did in Korea and when they were actually giving that information out to the public. And it worked. But I also understand the concerns that they have with HIPAA. I also understand with the concerns of putting out information that later on may be false, but they're liable for. So, Madam Speaker, coming to think of it, because I don't support this measure anyways, I don't support this bill, that if we leave this amendment in here, the governor may not even sign it because of 3 and 4. So, Madam Speaker, with that being said, I don't want to hide behind anything. So I'm going to object to this amendment on those grounds. It's just an amendment that's going to be placed in here, and it ends up that the governor won't even sign it into law because of this amendment. Maybe that'll be good. But regardless, I don't want to hide behind anything or just be deceivious from it, so I'm just going to object to this amendment, Madam Speaker.
Point of personal privilege, Madam Speaker.
Talina.
Your point of personal privilege, Vice Speaker.
In according with our Mason rules, you don't attack the person or the characters or the individual's character.
She didn't attack her character.
It was completely out of line.
Tatlu.
It's caramel ice cream.
Unprofessional.
Point of personal
Uncollegial.
privilege. Thank you.
I still have the floor, Madam Speaker. To call
Look at
this
Clint,
a
look at Clint.
deception on the record,
Rumble in the Bronx.
uncalled for. Every single one of us makes amendments and adds requirements to bills
It is what it is.
to ensure that measures are taken. This information is not that we're putting out here on this amendment, this information is not being given to the public. And I didn't know that we could tell the future whether the governor will or will not sign something. All I
just
ask
need one
is
more,
to
right?
be collegial here and to be professional.
Take it outside, girls. Take it outside. Cash me outside.
Thank you, Vice Speaker.
Point of
Cash
personal
me
privilege, Madam
outside.
State
Speaker.
your point of personal privilege, Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, what I said was just truth.
She's
What I said
smirking.
had nothing to do with offending anybody or anything. I see it the way it is, and I called it the way it is. So, thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Castro, you are recognized on the amendment. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak on the amendment? If not, Vice Speaker, I do apologize. Senator Mary Torres,
I just
you
want
are
to make a
recognized.
point. I just want to bring up a point of information and looking at the items and the concern about the gravity of the way that it's written. I just want to point out that there's one operative word here consistent in item 3 and 4, and that is to the extent practicable. Practicable means can it be done or not? If you're able to, yes. If you're not able to, no. So, let's just not lose our lids. That is the operative word, and I think that it must have been put in there for that very purpose. If it can, it will be. If it cannot, it will not be. End of story. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome, Senator Torres. On the Vice Speaker amendment, anybody else wishing to
Cash out.
speak?
They're like, nope.
If not, Vice Speaker Nelson, I recognize you on your closing, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Close it down.
Madam Speaker, this amendment ensures that the people of Guam are brought forward if the governor should choose the need or should find the need to implement a curfew to attack this COVID-19 crisis. This virus is invisible. We see the previous speaker spraying her chair down and the desk because that's how serious it is with Lysol. So we cannot pretend like it doesn't exist.
Point of personal privilege, Madam Speaker. For me,
Hold on.
spraying down my desk with Lysol,
Minor.
I have a 91-year-old father. So I'm taking precautions, Madam Speaker, because I'm here for the
Minority Leader,
people.
We're gonna take a
Look at Will.
moment's
Look at Will.
Clint was like this before. He was like, now he's like. Recess number 40. Oh my goodness, that was so. Oh, they're arguing. Look, they're arguing.
Turn on the mic. Clint's getting on.
Uh-oh. That was an argument. Amanda's all like, what's going on?
And then Senator Kelly Marsh is like, just keep looking forward.
Dude, if I was in there, I'll be sitting there like, tell her.
I don't know what Will was thinking. Tello was going to throw him. Pam Duval says, little man gets up. Munga Hinaling Tadagwa says, Gov lied, and that's not to be trusted. That's a very good point.
Yep.
Rita Orseo says, lower your voice, bring it down.
Lower your voice.
Mike Gogui says, freaking circus. Pam Duval says, I wish I could hear. Meryl Blell says, Will the ref. Everybody wants to hear what that fight was about, right?
Will's like, babe, no, my babe.
If there was chili and hot dogs, Juana says.
Alicia says, I'm a P. James Howard says, this is outrageous. Well, I guess if any of us were falling asleep, that sure woke us up. Thank you, Vice Speaker Nelson and Senator Tello Taidagui. That was awesome. Okay.
Action towards the end of the day,
That was pretty good. I don't think they should recess now. I think they should just go
Vote no
straight for this.
on the bill.
Well, yeah, vote no on the bill and then continue on. Please, legislature, don't recess after this bill. Just keep
Is
going.
Will for the bill or against the bill?
According to my count, well, you know what, actually, let's just ask him.
Because we have 7 already. There.
The 35th Guam Legislature is back from recess. Colleagues, we will recess till tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Oh my goodness,
Oh,
my
yes,
goodness.
that was something.
Guys, if you can email all the senators with your opposition against 335, it will make a difference tomorrow morning. They'll have all night to stew in it. And the more letters, the more emails they receive, it will make a difference. The way it made the difference on bill number 334.
Yes. Congratulate yourselves, everyone. Do a Luleon Guerrero administration and pat yourselves on the back.
Give yourself some fireworks.
You all helped to defeat half of the Dictator Acts, meaning the first Dictator Act. We're on our way to defeating the second Dictator Act. There are 7 senators so far who have announced their opposition to it, including 2 who were co-sponsors who've yanked their names from the bill. And they call it the Curfew Act, but it does way more than institute a curfew.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the governor even broader powers to regulate business. So basically any business that she likes can live and survive, and she will not seize their property. Any business that does not fall into that category of what's good for Lou.
Or a business that is going to owe her money.
Yep.
To her bank that probably has mortgages or whatever, business loans, she will keep open.
Oh, it was the YouTube continuation thing.
They didn't say what time they're gonna recess till.
Oh.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow.
We'll ask. So the 7 are Joseph Augustine, Telo Tadigui, Pito Terlahi, Luis Munya, Jim Moylan, Clint Rigel, and Regine Biscoli. I asked Senator Will Castro whether we can break news about his being against Bill 335. He hasn't responded yet. 1 second. We will get to some news about that came from the Speaker's office, but right now let's try to get a hold of Senator Telo Tadigui.
Where's the scrapping?
Oh, we have breaking news. Will Castro is the 8th vote against Bill 335. It'll be defeated.
She's still steaming, bro.
Do you think they're fighting?
Yeah, it's still going on.
Do you think they're yelling at each other right now?
Yeah.
I'll call you back, okay? I'm getting in the car.
Okay, bye.
Catch me outside.
Breaking news. Bill 335 has the votes to fail now that we have confirmation from Senator Will Castro.
But this scares me
it.
because now the governor has time
To change their
minds.
You're right.
But the senators also need to realize is that they're not they're part of this. If they pass this law, the governor can do whatever they want to them.
Yeah.
You know, them and their household.
Well, you know, there's favorites among them, so you know. What, Issa? Man.
Kill.
So while we're waiting for Senator Tadigwi's call, we're on recess number 41 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's a lot of recesses for, what is it, 3 days worth of session now?
Yeah.
That
You
is
know
quite a
we
bit.
are gonna play this during election time. Huh?
Oh, hold on.
Hi, my baby. Hi, guys. Where are you guys going?
Oh. We have breaking news from the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Okay.
So, well, we'll wait for Johnny first. And let me light a cigarette for this. This is awesome.
Okay, babe. We're live.
Hi, darling.
Can you get me triple cheeseburger?
Love you.
Earlier today, and this is at the behest of many of you who have been worried about corruption running rampant during this pandemic emergency, we wrote to the U.S. Attorney's Office and we asked, many of our viewers are becoming suspicious of wrong information being put out by Governor Lilian Guerrero and her administration regarding federal funding and the implementation of CARES Act programs locally. Even some members of the Guam legislature are concerned about the lack of reporting by the administration about the seizure of property, contracts, etc. There now is a growing panic about the Guam legislature contemplating giving dictatorial powers to the governor. This is on top of questions whether the existing Emergency Health Powers Act passes constitutional muster. May we have a statement from the United States Attorney on these matters? If possible, may we also have some assurance from the U.S. Attorney's Office that your office is monitoring these situations in order to safeguard the people of this district against corruption and the pillaging of our constitutional and civil rights? I honestly thought they weren't gonna answer.
I knew where they were gonna answer. That's why I said, let's email them, Troy.
U.S. Attorney Sean Anderson wrote back, the Department of Justice places a high priority on addressing the misuse of federal funds by individuals in the public and private sectors. With the current COVID-19 pandemic, Attorney General William Barr has directed United States Attorney's offices nationwide to pay particular attention to any fraud or wrongdoing related to critical medical supplies or devices. We support law enforcement in their efforts to address this unconscionable activity. Any victim of a scam or attempted fraud involving COVID-19 should contact the National Center for Disaster Fraud Hotline at 866-720-5721 or email at disaster@leo.gov. They may also contact the Department of Homeland Security Investigations for HSI Guam 671-645-2328. Again, that's 671-645-2328. And HSI Saipan at 670-237-0600. Again, 670-237-0600. As with other United States Attorney's offices,
I love this so much.
our office and the Civil Rights Division at Maine Justice actively monitor reports of alleged civil rights violations for potential civil and criminal enforcement. Governors throughout the United States have issued emergency orders in an effort to address the ongoing pandemic. Their governments are working hard with limited resources to address this exceptional health and safety challenge. The public is strongly encouraged to follow the guidance that has been issued to promote their health and the health of others. However, the public should also know that our Constitution is not simply set aside during difficult times. There is no free rein in government authority or action. For those, I'm getting goosebumps.
I love it so
For
much.
those who believe their civil rights may have been violated, they should contact the Federal Bureau of Investigation at 808-566-4300. Again, the number for the FBI, that the U.S. Attorney's Office. You need to stop, Yumiko.
Yumiko.
That the U.S. Attorney's Office provides to report violations of civil and constitutional rights. Area code 808-566-4300. This is from U.S. Attorney Sean Anderson for the Districts of Guam and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Right on. We'll get that story up. We'll also get a story up regarding a letter or a news release from, hold on, I'm trying to follow, it's in my WhatsApp. This is from the Speaker's office. You know what, I'm just so darn excited about that U.S. Attorney statement. We're gonna need to just make this a written story because I wanna get on these stories already. So, oh, hold on, getting something on the record from Senator Therese Terlahi's office. Hold on.
Wonderful.
On the record, Senator Therese Terlahi will not be supporting Substitute Bill 335. There are now 9 votes in opposition to Dictator Bill number 2.
All
And so
right.
that should kill it, as long as the governor doesn't manage to convince the people who already said no to change their minds. Okay, and that's all I have. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres.
And I'm Johnny Rosario, and that's Eric.
Have a good day.